Bonjour, ici je vais enregistrer ce qu'on appelle le projet Neumann numéro 6, chapitre 6 donc. Je vais notamment faire une brève introduction sur les services secrets. En anglais, the Secret Services. Ok. As well as you work for secret services, you are an agent called usually secret agent or officer of secret services who is charged to the management or conducting of secret affair. Everything that characterizes you is unknown, like your name, your origin, your domicile, and so on. So you should be fictive and hold fictive identity as well as global aspect of your identity. The secret services exist in all over the world and got its own real sense of existence. The secret services high performance of security should exist in daily life in our society. But the point is how to manage their functioning so that there is no obvious abuse of law and constitutional rule. The secret services are in harmony with the real time of our existence and is according to the functioning and regulation of every kind of society. And thus, whatever it is and in which country it is, there is a profound utility of the existence of secret services. There is a background of secret services existence and sense in the establishment of our mentality that refers to the security like international security and interior security. It is then normal that the secret services exist in some area of society. There is a role and attribution of secret services by the population. Usually people in society think about secret services and secret agents like James Bond, the popularity star of secret agents. But actually, this kind of action exists seldom and, well, rarely. There is an existence of action of secret services that is large, and there are a lot of action ruled by the secret services. So that means simply that everything is useful and manipulated and targeted to be manipulated by the secret services. The main role of secret services is to guard the national security by implementing the international intelligence information and the national intelligence information for the purpose to strengthen the network security in all aspects. Certainly, this is close to the police services, which are mainly attributed to the basic penal law violation codes. The penal codes is useful sometimes even in violation to provide more efficiency for the information network of intelligence services. So everything can be manipulated, like the system, the legal system, the illegal system, the material, the person of the situation are sometimes or mainly every time targeted by the secret services network action to provide more efficiency for the result of the security, and this the international security and the national security also. That means that the idea that is developed by the population and this about the secret services, the idea is a basic ground piece of information, and the information can be targeted to secure or protect people. The information can bring billions of dollars to a certain person, as well as it can save life of people. So, the background material in the intellectual field for the secret services and generally the security services is the information. But actually, when we speak about espionage, the information stolen or the information targeted is not commonly adapted to the legal system. This means that there are few options of issues in the legal system when we speak about the information and the network of information. That network that I call the black market of information, there is a strategy for elaborating rumors that are certainly true, but the way of information is divulgated shows, after analyzing, that there exists a mechanism of targeted information. But now, there is importance to catch and captivate the source of information and the objective of information. But in time, espionage exists, and when espionage is favored by some institution or firm or company, we might be forced to accept that there is a reality of existence of secret services. Some people among the population might develop panic about it or ignorance, and when we are speaking about the secret services, then we might be around the alienation. There are ideas that are used normally in the norm of our society and is its mentality. This means that the mentality accepts and tolerates a certain normality of mentality. Criteria and aspects of that mentality are the predisposition of idea that we might got in mind when we are confronted to the secret services idea. We might implicate the mind of mentality because it's effectively by that point that we should begin. First, it's useful in some way for the advantages of the secret services that citizens of our country would ignore the secret services existence and rather ignore their action throughout the population. This will help the favoritism of secret services and their further action. We might think, in fact, that ignorance is combated by the education and the freedom of education to be eradicated in the mentality. There is right of education and free education. The democratic principle and system allow more favoritism about the right of education and free education. But when we might think about it, as we consider and suppose or certify that secret services is a high performance of security as well as external security and as interior security, we might adopt this mind of idea that the secret services are ready to use every things that sense the logic of context for the purpose of optimal security acts and objectives that contribute to that security. As well as we might be astonished, the secret services exploit the ignorance process as well as intellectual guidelines that define and determine the ignorance state of mind as well as the ignorance that is practically used by the mentality of the population for improving the secrecy of those services and that allow them to act. That does not mean that there are not abuses, and they are rather rarely pursued by the legal system or the judge accredited by the legal system. That means, while exploiting ignorance, we might exploit lie about everything, and most of all, lie when it concerns a way of no communicating in that case. We talk usually about rumor and targeted information to develop or implement the efficiency of optimal security of the secret services. So normally, and while analyzing that purpose, the ignorance is useful, and while it's exploited by the secret services with good or bad reason, it is destroying the chance of democratic principle and freedom of mind to be developed further and favored. And this is an undermining of the jurisprudence action in some situation where the law is the last chance for allowing change in the case of a situation. It is certainly logical that when you are in an affair with the secret services, or when you are a member or exploited by the secret services, there is a part of communication that remains secret, and the secrecy guidelines of this communication that are you rather should be or would be the only to see it and or understand might lead you to a bad consideration with the norm of mentality as well as the norm of medical care about mental affection. Then we speak about psychologists and psychiatric. Some psychologists as well as psychiatric are hired by the Secret Services organization as well as all other professions for conducting the guidelines and the principal objective of those Secret Services. But what is clear in mind is that they should apply their action accordance to an objective and developing thus of a source or a mechanism of source that allow them to apply in those circumstances. This might occur simply in a banal conversation or by speaking simply to person. Thus, the person use a role and a guidelines of action that should determine objectives. The person is a banal or become a banal personage. The psychologist and the psychiatric care about the suffer that their patients might express. When you are on a conversation with a psychologist or a psychiatric and with confidence you relate that you see and observe something that conducts your perception to suppose a kind of Secret Service action, you might lead yourself to be a negative conclusion from psychiatric. So, those professionals are not the best solution for confidence of problems that occur from your perception, while they are the best position for declaring a problem of perception that is a problem of mental disease. But you are the only that could be observing this perception. Normally, you are analyzing, and after reflection, you might conclude that this comes from a principle of Secret Services communication guidelines. Certainly, that this should remain secret, and when you are the only you who might perceive the such things, this might be a wish for the Secret Services to intimidate you. But in fact, when they suppose that your declaration that are certainly remaining secret is a result of an hallucination, and they transfer this mind of appreciation to the judge, then you are locked into that principle of ignorance for good. This will not allow any people in the safe mind guidelines to try to understand what purpose it is, and if there is really a certain logical, certain sense of secret communication hidden in that context, and if there is a threatening. Normally, holding a secret communication with a person or some person that are playing the role of personage in that context of scene is a wish for the Secret Services officer that is conducting the program of for intimidating. By the other way, this might motivate the Secret Services to further neglect that you might present a threat for them and all their services, but this might undermine the jurisprudence for further exploring and investigate for the purpose to persuade those secret agents or the service judiciary. The Secret Service exploit everything, also the judicial system and the medical system also. And they prefer that when you are a failure risk for them, as this happening in Belgium for example, those Secret Services will target their action to send you to a psychiatric hospital for medical care. But this is a kind of weapon that serves to the psychological war and in psychological fields. Thus, this mechanism of think contributes largely to the dissimulation of those secret services, and the population of such kind of thought is formatted to a certain manner on their minds about the neglecting or ignoring the existence of secret services, or that simply you are not connected to secret services. I personally believe and promote the existence of secret services. I support their existence, but nowadays there should be existing another kind of secret services, and thus referring to the mission, the guidelines, and the application of those services and their adaptation to the new world and the new technologies. This for many pupils that play in the harmony with the real time and the real condition of existence of our existence, the existence of secret services and their role in our society or across many foreign societies is very different and distant from role to James Bond as democrated in the movies. Certainly, if I'm an officer who is working for the intelligence services, I will send spies who are impossible to be recognized. They might have all the characteristics which are quite different from the military condition to apply, cause there is an important for most of all in the role of secret services, also called the intelligence services, then to act and operate with intelligence and the ability to camouflage and collect informations, that important informations and capital informations. Those roles contribute to intelligence services should be performed with caution to avoid to be caught. Then there is always a meaning and a middle to collect information at first, and one be sure to operate with justice and judicial institution or military to operate following the law. But the most important and the first priority of this is to collect information, to get informed, and to transfer those information to the contact who is in charge to receive those information, and then whether there is a second or a third contact before to charge the arrival of those information to the Center of Information for Espionage and Intelligence Center Information. The realism of existence of secret services organization is in harmony with the real time of our existence. There might be no competent government without the existence of secret services. In fact, the secret services of a country act and operate according to the rule of the policy of its country. This has always existed in our world, and more than ever, the pertinence of the role and the use of and utility of those secret services should perform mostly on security matter and defend the advantages of the country in and for which they are attributed. Those advantages might be the security of state and general security of economic and infrastructures. Those might also be the security and well-being of the population, the protection of the patrimony of the state, and geopolicy structure and strategy. The analyzing of threats throughout the state of and most of all defend of and favor the prosperity of its population and its country. To defend and combat the interior threats about criminality and violence, and also attack to the country and all that belong to the country. The secret services, following my opinion, are the structure of guidelines that should moderate the flow and the structure of the functioning of the society. There also are the guidelines of perspective and security perspective for the functioning of a country. The secret services role is the background of the functioning for the well-being, but nevertheless the secret services should not avoid the installation of democracy, as well as the democracy creation and establishment does not depend on the existence of secret services. This means that even there is a democracy system or not, each country develops its own secret services. There is an obligation of consciousness and responsibility for the secret services and the politics to develop the establishment of democracy for this purpose, for the well-being of the population of this country. So, then, exists the secret services through the guidelines of action and operation that is controlled by justice and civilian authority. So secret services guidelines, action and operation in those countries which develop the establishment of democracy are conducted by respect of the law of human conditions, the freedom of expression and the following constitution which is guidelines for every country that allow and permits and promotes the existence of democracy. Then we call the secret services the intelligence services, which requires the collection of information through a network of information and transmission. In the countries of democracy system establishment, the secret services, usually called intelligence services, work with collaboration with the justice, and they are controlled by magistrates at least that allow other judicial services to operate arresting. An arrest should be operated when there is a violation of the law or the constitution principle. Actually, we have seen some periods that trace the history of secret services in the world and mostly referred to the modern world, like the Second World War and the Cold War, that refers to some situation of geopolicy and the dispute that it has occurred in the real world. During the Second World War, the secret services are concerned as well as the military police for pursuing the criminal of war and the Nazi. The Nazi caused the war in the World War. And this is extremely important to track the Nazi collaboration and Nazi characteristics and Nazi situation and condition and arrest them and conduct them to a trial, and mostly a military trial, cause the Nazi operates to violation of every kind of law of human condition and apply military action and condition to every people that belong to the society. The Nazi established a dictatorial regime in Europe. Their principles were simply against the human rights condition, but at that time there were no so concrete establishment system that forced to respect the human rights conditions and principle of human well-being and welfare. Those systems that allow to fight against a dictatorial regime and promote the development of democracy were concrete after the Second World War. So the secret services were very active in that period, and this period is a part of period for the functioning and logic of secret services that is used to see brightly the history of secret services. The main violation of human condition used during and after the Second World War is the torture. So the torture is used by the Nazi, but it is also used by other secret services of all countries, and even the military, and even the countries that refer the constitution and penal law for democracy principle. This evolution has permitted to the secret services organization to evaluate as some constant actor and independent actor in the real situation of war organization and reorganization. As we might imagine, those periods are characterized by a context in which we might identify the opponent and adversary, and in which we might identify the reason of fights and the reason of espionage, as well as we think that the role of secret services is espionage for most of all. So the secret services does not have any sense if there is no espionage. Normally and actually, the espionage is illegal following the law, but espionage is the main background of main framework for the functioning of and existence purpose of the secret services. The reason of the existence of secret services is normal and essential for the functioning of our society and our world. Certainly, it's complicated to put it to the security matter, as well as we might imagine that the security is never at its maximum level of functioning and organization functioning for the protecting civilian or building or patrimonies of all kind of advantages of their solicitor. It is obvious that in every situation the security matter that there is never a maximum 100% of security assured, but the best of the security is at its maximal level. The best security is useful and successful for the population and the patrimonies of the country referred to this matter. The secret services got a capital role about the functioning of the society throughout the political and the legal law and the sociology of our society. This was the story and the contents introducing the secret services matter in our existence worlds. So, there exist terms of association and collaboration between people and organization, and between organization, and there exists also a term of dispute and world trouble, like the maximal trouble in a society is the war. So the regulation of society and any kind of society depends on to some department of regulation on the political sphere of function, like the Interior Department, Defense Department, the Foreign Department, Justice Department, and Enterprise Related Department, Economic Department, Cultural Department, the Financial Department, and all departments that refer to the functioning of government that type to regulate the functioning of a country might, for every reason be necessary to get implicated and to illustrate the creation and the role of the functioning of the secret services. The secret services is at the top of every security level for any country and should for every term of matter be supported. Now, we have seen the use of secret services for all, and we might study the way of and role of secret services is important and the tactic used by the secret services, but we might also be aware that the secret services might not function as well as efficiently or might be misguided cause it's a matter of human being, whatever it is. This means that every government got its own secret services which are considered to function according to the rule of the policy, which are guided by the tenets of government. For instance, in some country where there is a defense for any reason for the freedom and in every kind of its aspects, like the freedom of expression, I think, and the secret services are the guardian of the constitution. This exists in many countries where there is an existence of democratic system. This was the story of secret services. For the rest one, I will imply to you to continue producing those secret services should protect and defend the role of the constitution of those countries and are related to this justice and senatorial functioning. For such reason, the secret services are controlled by the justice and senatorial for being divulgated to the real